Today we are going to talk about cladograms. By the end of this video, you should understand what a cladogram is, what it shows, and how to read and build cladograms. In order to be successful in this assignment, you'll need your notes page out. So please go ahead and get that out right now. Your notes page is the cladogram notes and introduction. So first, this is an example of a cladogram. You can see here that this shows the evolution over time of the Homo group. And you can see here, right here are our Homo sapiens. So this is an evolutionary tree or cladogram, and here is our common ancestor. And you can see over time that we evolved from a common ancestor. We are not ancestors with chimps. Like, we did not come from chimpanzees. We came from a common ancestor. So this is an example of a cladogram. Here is something that's really important. This right here is not your family tree, right? It doesn't go in a straight line. There are people who come off of your family tree. Just like this is not evolution. We didn't go from a fish to a salamander to a cat to you. We have these common ancestors, right? Common ancestors of all vertebrates, common ancestors of four-legged vertebrates, common ancestors of mammals. We have these common ancestors. We did not come from fish. Fish and us have a common ancestor way long ago. And cladograms are really important because they're diagrams that show evolutionary relationships. So go ahead and take a second and think, what do you observe about these cladograms? Well, hopefully you notice that there are species here. So there are organisms at the top and that they are separated by lines. I hope you also notice that there are these nodes here that indicate the common ancestor. So those are at the nodes. In between the nodes, we have the trait that changed between the organisms. So for example, the difference between salamanders and lizards is that lizards have claws or nails. So here's a great example. Here are all of these organisms, and we can see that they have common ancestors, right? Here's their common ancestor that was a vertebrae. This common ancestor had a jaw. This common ancestor had 4 legs. This common ancestor had an amniotic egg. This common ancestor, it was a mammal, which meant it had hair and fed its own young with milk. So we can see these differences of these common ancestors here. So this is the part where we want to go ahead and start labeling our notes. Our star is our organisms. These boxes are the derived traits. So these are the traits that are different. We can see those traits here. And then those nodes right there are the common ancestor. And we can see the common ancestors listed here. And on this arrow, we're going to write time. Another word for organism that we could add here is also species. So here we are. A derived trait is a trait that an organism evolved. A derived trait is present in all organisms after that trait, but absent in the ones before. So if we have a derived trait right here, these 2 species or organisms would have it, and these ones would not. So we're going to go ahead and do the first couple of these together, and I'd like you to fill it on your worksheet. Here's our common ancestor, and the first organism, according to this cladogram, that existed is an insect. So we're going to write insect right here. Which organism evolved most recently? That is this organism right here, which is humans. Next, it says which organisms have hair. So I'm going to find that derived trait. It's right here. That means that none of these organisms have hair, but everything up here does have hair. So it would be prosimians and humans. Next, it asks how many organisms have vertebrae. Well, here's our vertebrae, which means everything above here does and everything below does not. And so that means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 organisms that have vertebrae. Next, it says which organisms are bipedal. That means they walk on 2 legs. So I find bipedal, which is right here. Everything above that is bipedal. Everything below is not. And so we only have one organism, and that organism is humans. Please go ahead and pause the video and answer 6 through 10. When you've answered 6 through 10, please resume and push play to check your answers. So go ahead and pause right now. So go ahead and check your answers. Hopefully you got these correct. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out. But we're going to go ahead and move on. So we've learned how to read a cladogram, and now we're going to look how we are going to place these derived traits on this existing cladogram. So the first thing we want to do is notice what is super, super obvious. So I notice that this organism right here, does not have legs, but that this organism right here does. So I know that between those two organisms at spot B, that means to be legs. So I am done with that. Perfect. Next, I notice that it says wings, and I notice that it's very obvious to me that those wings occur at F. So I'm going to place F there. Perfect. Now I need to go ahead and see if I can determine other things. So I know that spiders have 8 legs, and I can see that all the organisms above the spiders have 6 legs. So that's going to be my C, which is 6 legs. Next, I notice that there's a difference between this fly and these other organisms. They have double sets of wings. So I know that G is double sets of wings. So now I'm left with 4 more options: segmented body, abdominal appendages, that means legs on their abdomen, crushing mouthpieces, and curly antenna. So those are the things that I need to look for. Well, curly antenna seems really obvious to me. I notice that this cute little moth right here does have curly antenna. So I'm going to say that that must be my H. Now I'm left with, different options. And I notice that D and E apply only to those organisms, right? Because they're up at the top and they're not down here on this main evolutionary line. So that's something that's important to know. I notice I have segmented body, abdominal appendages, and crushing mouth parts. Well, here, this little friend has some appendages that are on his end, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say that D is abominable. It sounds like the abominable snowman. Man, abdomen is really a hard word for me to say today. So we're just going to say that this is D. Perfect. And now I notice that we have segmented body or crushing mouth parts. And I'm either looking at E or A. Well, I know that worms are segmented, and that is a cute little picture of a worm. So I'm going to say A is this one, and E is this crushing mouthpiece. We can kind of see those crushing mouthpieces there. Awesome. Hopefully that made some sense. It is the end of our video. You should understand what a cladogram is. You should understand how to read a cladogram, and you should understand how to make a cladogram.